Today, Open Source Security is talking to Jordi Boggiano. He's the lead maintainer of Composer and Packagist. And Jordi caught my attention. It's been probably a week or two now for some blog posts that you wrote. Well, I guess your colleagues wrote, maybe. We'll say whatever details. But why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what Composer and Packagist are, and we'll go from there. Because I am so excited for this one. I feel like the future is finally here.
Okay. So hi. So I'm Jordi. I have been maintaining Composer now, which is the PHP dependency manager, um, for what is it now? 15 years. So it's been a while.
Wow.
And 10 years ago we started a company as well called Private Packagist, to help us kind of fund the open source development. And so I guess that's all the blog posts you read that were those were written by colleagues there at the company, because we had sorry, I'm gonna go back to the what you actually asked me.
Sure.
So you have Composer with the dependency manager. Packages.org is the just for anyone not familiar with the PHP ecosystem, that's the package repository or registry.
Yeah.
So that's where you go and browse for finding libraries, etc. And then Private Packagist is the thing we sell, which is on packagist.com. So it's kind of like just like security related services for businesses working with Composer on PHP.
For sure.
And yeah, we had recently, we kind of took 2 weeks out of the regular schedule and just said, okay, we'll ignore everything else for 2 weeks and try and ship stuff as soon as, like, as fast as possible, and try and communicate a lot about what we're doing and what we're planning. And that's why we wrote like almost a blog post per day for those 2 weeks. So it's been
Wait,
very
you did
busy.
this all in 2 weeks?
I mean, it's. I think a bunch of the shipping of features, some of them were kind of in the pipeline. We're just trying to pushing them out, and some of the little things we did during those 2 weeks, but mostly the communication aspect was also a
Okay.
big focus there.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so let's start
yeah,
with your blog post then, because I'm going to start with the post that it's just titled "An Update on Composer and Packagist Supply Chain Security." And I think
right.
this one, I mean, this is the one that caught my attention. I think it sets the stage for everything else I've seen. And I'll put links to all this
Yeah.
stuff in the show notes for anyone interested. But I'll just go to your TLDR because I feel like there's three things you did right away. It looks like that are I think are very impressive, and your things coming are phenomenal in my opinion. So number one, you've got Aikido, who I talked to Charlie Erickson from Aikido a couple months ago on the show. Like Aikido's
Uh-huh.
doing amazing work on understanding malware and just malicious things in open source.
Yeah.
Aikido, you're running Aikido malware detection
Mm-hmm.
in packages.org. You've got
Yep.
rapid manual incident response by the packages team. You'll have to tell us what that means because I don't totally understand. And you have a public transparency log, which I think is really cool. So I will let you address those three things in the order of your choosing, but I think all of them feel like a big deal.
Mm-hmm. So Aikido, we started that in April, I think.
Okay.
So in April we got the feed and we started like synchronizing. So they give us access like what is it like CC BY license to their malware feed.
Okay.
So that we can kind of copy all the data and just like publish it on the website as well, and make it accessible to Composer as a client. So the actual Composer release that happened 2 weeks ago, I believe, where we finally got that into the client. So that now we check really like on install and on update. Like before installing, we check if any of the versions you're gonna install known to contain malware, and if they do, we just block it.
And you have a blog post in this. That one's called "Blocking Malware Downloads for Every Composer Version," which is it's pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, that's then another aspect of private Packagist, where we try to also like help some of the customers that don't or are not able to update to the latest Composer version for whatever complicated reasons sometimes.
Yes.
And so we do the blocking at the server level there for them, because we can act as an intermediary there. So it's a little bit easier.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. And here's what I think I read in the post, but you tell me if I got this right. So the private registry, you just it doesn't appear, right? And this is, I assume your customers can set whether they want this behavior, or if a keto flags it, you just don't show it. But for the public registry, if a keto flags it, the new version of Composer will not install it and warn you, which you can undo and be like, no, I don't, go away, keto. But then your team is also, and I guess this is like the second thing where you have what'd you call it? The rapid manual incident response.
Yeah.
Where your team vets those findings and determines if it's a true positive or a false positive. And obviously at that point, you remove it from the public registry. Did I get that right?
Yeah, so I think that's something we're still kind of trying to figure out, because it's so far, I would say, all but two of them were kind of, all the reports they sent us were, just random little packages that nobody is using.
Yeah.
And for those, it's not too bad. Like if you just leave them lying around, you warn people, like chances of something bad really happening are fairly low. But we've had, I think, 2 incidents now in the last few weeks where it was actually like packages that are in heavy use, and somehow the maintainers got hacked, or like one of the maintainers got hacked, and they managed to publish a new version on GitHub with malware in it. These are much trickier cases, because yes, you do want to intervene, or like you want to make sure to stop the spread as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So you avoid like cases like all the Shai-Hulud stuff in the NPM ecosystem, where things start self-replicating. This is really bad. So yeah, that point, I think it's the response aspect. Right now, what we do is usually Aikido, or with also like socket.dev.
Nice.
Is both of them, we have a Slack channel with them, and so if they spot anything bad, they just ping us. Usually that's on a Saturday morning at 2 a.m. because that's when these things happen. But yeah, we do our best, given the time zones, etc., to act as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so we just take a look and try to take appropriate actions, but we're still kind of working on a playbook there, and like how, figuring out how to best handle these. Also, still have to develop some workflows on our end, so that we can block things a little bit cleaner than just with the existing tooling we had in place. Like we could just delete stuff, but that's fairly rough, and not necessarily preventing new malware from happening. So I think we really need to still figure that out. But
yeah. Well, okay. So I want to actually ask about kind of related to that. Is one of your posts talks about, and I think this is only for your private registry, the paying customers, but this is a cool feature. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you can restrict what versions of Composer your clients are allowed to connect with. So you can say, like, for example, you just talked about, the new versions of Composer block malware, old versions don't.
Yep.
And so I, as an organization, could say, I do not want any old versions of Composer to connect to my private registry under any circumstances. And it just, obviously, it fails. Like, that is cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's something, it's just the more we look at it, we're like, oh yeah, there's this vector which we're not covering yet, right? And then you start, because that's really the problem in like in big organizations, where you do want to control this. um it's just, it's difficult. If you have 1,000 developers, like it's very difficult to go and control like what is everyone doing on their machine. Do they run the proper up-to-date version, etc.
Yes.
So yeah, this is one aspect of that. But then another angle on this is also, uh, like we've noticed, like with Claude or other LLMs, if you tell them, like if you show them, um, an error message saying, hey, this package contains malware, so it cannot be installed. So with this some standard error message we're showing there, which hints at how you can like bypass the warning if you need to, because we're trying to be helpful, and we
Yes.
just we want to make sure that people know how to remove this if there's something that's flagged incorrectly or something. The problem is, yeah, you feed that into an LLM and it goes like, oh, well, I can just do that to bypass the warning and install the package.
Yep. Yep.
And so if you have agents like that, running with little or no supervision, it's like quickly you're gonna end up bypassing the rules, which is not great. So we're also thinking about how we can address that and like enforce some rules at the registry level, so that so there's a registry can really say, okay, all the clients need to enforce the malware filtering and like block doors, and kind of just follow the policy there, and not like that you cannot override the policy on the client side, but that's really
Yeah.
the server
Yeah.
enforcing it, which we cannot really do for the public like open source registry, but
Okay, I
for the
mean, so
private one,
that's a
it's
question
easier.
people have, right? Is why can't you do that for the public registry? And you and I both know why this is, right? But it's not, I mean, I don't think people understand how just far behind a lot of, CI systems and containers are.
That's one aspect for sure. That there's just millions of systems running random versions out there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
even then, I think it's like, even if you assumed everyone was running latest, etc., there's still just the odd chance that Aikido flags something very popular as malware, even though they messed up. There's a chance, right?
Yes.
Um, and so suddenly, I don't know, like a super popular package can't be installed anywhere because they flagged it, and people have no way to bypass that. That would be a pretty bad day, I would think. So,
Right. Right. And there's
so I
also
think
people
it
love to
should be
say,
opt-in.
"Oh, who cares? That break the builds. It's fine." But we saw that was that left pad in the NPM world, where like an
Yeah,
enormous amount of the internet just went down because we
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
had, as
yeah,
soon as CI breaks, like the website breaks, and now
yeah, yeah.
services are gone, which is terrible.
Yeah, this cascades to like in unpredictable
Yeah,
situations,
I mean,
really.
you have an impossible job because no matter what you do, someone's going to be mad at you. Like
To some extent, yeah. I guess
there's
so.
no way out.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I will say, like, I'm always appreciative when anyone who works on a public registry finds time to talk to me, because I know like how terrible and horrible your job is. No matter what you tell me on this show, someone's going to complain to you about it. So it is, I do appreciate that. All right. I want to ask about your public transparency log,
Hmm.
because this one feels interesting to me. I don't know of any other public registries that are creating a public transparency log of kind of what's going on. And in all seriousness, I don't totally understand what this is or what it's going to do.
Yeah.
If you have a blog post, I've not found it yet.
No, it's it's in the pipeline.
That's fine. I get it.
Um, no, we had a meeting after FOSDEM in January, I think, in Brussels, with all, or not all, but I don't know, 20 or something different package registries were there
Wow.
present.
Nice.
like represented by one or two people, and so that was very interesting. We had a good chat there, and from that I gather that I think you're right, that I don't think any other has really a transparency log. Um, they probably have some amount of internal logging and like audit log capabilities, but
Yeah.
yeah, we really wanted to make this public. What we still are missing there, though, and which is also why the blog post is not really out yet, is the public API to consume it. So
Oh,
right now it's kind of like there are pages and you can just go and browse it manually. Um, so it's there and it's public, but it's not really linked yet from anywhere, and so it's still kind of flying under the radar. But we've been collecting data for almost a year now, I guess. So
wow. And you do
um,
note in this post things like denoting if MFA was used when a package is uploaded.
yes,
I mean, that's an example, right? Where
exactly,
in
yeah.
like this is something I could see. I'm sure Akito's using this already. But if every version of a package is updated with MFA enabled, and all of a sudden there's one that isn't, like, what's going on? I
Right,
mean, granted,
right.
it could
No,
be a
that's
mistake.
yeah. No, that's exactly the kind of pattern that you can do if you have a public log and you have an API for it. You can start consuming this and like just notice if anything out of the ordinary happens.
Yeah,
Um. So yeah, that's the goal. I think for now, like already for us, it's been an amazing just resource for just investigating stuff. So
sure.
whenever something happens, you can go look into it and see exactly when a version was added or deleted or, just like,
Oh, deleted, I suppose. Right. Because when you delete something, they often just vanish from the registry and no one has any idea what's going on.
yeah, so
Oh,
that's something we pushed out, I think, last week is finally having immutable releases. So you
yes.
cannot delete them anymore. You can only
Oh, like
soft
not at
delete.
all?
You can soft delete them, so they're pulled from the registry. Like the clients don't see them anymore, but on the website and the UI, you still see them.
Okay.
You just see them as like on a strike through kind of thing, just to say, there was a version, it's been pulled, um, but you cannot republish it.
Right. Right.
So,
Good.
I mean, you can republish exactly the same version, like undelete it, but you cannot override override it with something else, which has been done a lot in the past, and that's something like we
Yeah.
we saw it actually with one of the two bad malware incidents we had in the last few weeks. They just retagged a bunch of old tags, and
Yep.
so
Yep.
suddenly you have things which it looks the same as before, but it's just the same as before plus some
Yeah.
some evil
Yeah. The
stuff in there,
attackers
and
love
then
doing that.
yeah, and so this I think is really great to say, okay, that's just not possible anymore. Like if a version is out, it's out as is, and that's it. And so an attacker could publish a new version, but that's already a lot less confusing than like changing the history.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and so far, I think nobody has complained yet. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
but only attackers use that. Like, I feel like
yeah,
there's
no,
no reason.
so I would think so as well, but in effect, like because so I think we deployed this last Friday or Thursday, and within a few hours, I had already in the audit log, like you would see, because we keep track of that. So if you try to republish
Sure.
a version, we just keep track of it in the audit log just to say, hey, there was an attempt to republish something. It didn't do anything, but it's just to keep track of it. Um, and yeah, there were sure enough like already a few packages that, that tried to do something. And I think it's just people often like because the way this works in currently with Packagist is that the publishing process is really just we pull from Git. So the publishing is very easy. You do Git tag and you
Yeah.
push it. We get a notification from GitHub or whatever platform you're using, and we go and pull the repo, like pull the new tag and make a new release for it. Like You don't have to do anything else than just a git tag and push. So what happens is people push a new tag and then they're like, oh crap, I forgot to edit that thing. And then they
Ah,
go and fix it and they just retag, like delete the tag, retag it, force push, whatever. Whatever is what's in the mind of the person doing it. The problem is in reality, you have already systems like Aikido or like private Packagist or like, I don't know what else, that the instant a version is pushed, they go and fetch that, they synchronize that. And then 5 minutes later, you push again because you're like, oh, nobody used that. It's only been 5 minutes.
yep.
Well, a bunch of stuff goes wrong then because you have like split brain across the whole ecosystem. And so yeah, this has actually an effect which is sometimes really bad. So that's why we've been meaning to block this for many years, and now it's just with the first instances of malware really hitting us, we were like, okay, let's just do this now. And I'm
Yeah.
glad
Yeah.
we have it shipped now because it's yeah, it's much better like that, I think. I mean, GitHub also moved to this
Yep.
optional immutable releases a few months back, and that's
But GitHub
same
is
concept,
optional.
right?
You're not optional, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we just enforced it, and because we know like uh, all the big packages, they already do it correctly
Yeah,
because they know, and then they've been bit by this, that once you publish it, you can't republish it, otherwise someone's gonna complain. The smaller
for sure.
packages, yes, you can fly under the radar there mostly, but um,
Well,
yeah, they'll just have to learn to live with it. You just retag with one number more, like it's
yeah,
not a big deal.
right. We have plenty of numbers. It's fine.
Exactly, you're not gonna run out. Like it's okay.
Nice, nice. Okay, so I want to ask about that. So in your blog post, in your longer term direction section, you have, I
Yep,
mean, related to this, you have it says package, and I don't understand what this means really, so I'm really interested. It says
sure.
packagist.org hosting immutable build artifacts directly with Salsa build provenance and SIGSTOR
Yes,
attestation verified on the Composer client side. I'm curious what that all means, because you just
yes,
said you're just pulling tags out of GitHub. So
right.
what's the build? What's going on here?
Yeah, so I think it's one of those where you see the blog post, and when I said like we did that in the last
Yeah,
two
yeah.
weeks, like this blog post is definitely like at least 5 years worth of
Oh,
of
yeah. Oh, for
brainstorming
sure.
and
For
discussions, right?
sure.
So so this is not just
Yeah. No one's going to
something
hold you
we
to any
came
of this
up with.
stuff.
No, but
Yes.
it's just, yeah, it's a lot to digest, and it's a lot to do as well in the future. But so what this means, so the current state is we pull the tags, and then we tell the client, so Composer, to go and download from GitHub, GitLab, or whatever hosting backend you have, and so we just pull from there the zip files for that one Git reference. You take the commit hash, and we just go and download that. So this works. I mean, it has served us really well for 15 years. It's been great bandwidth-wise because we don't need to serve the bandwidth. Um, so that's, it's a solid system, and I think it has really the beauty that what you get installed is actually what you see in the Git repo, which compared to NPM or a lot of other ecosystems, but I think NPM in particular, you have really a build system where often you have the source, and then the resulting package looks
Yes.
completely different because you cross build it for like ESM and whatever, all the types of modules, um so this makes, I think, security wise, it's just much easier to smuggle some dirty stuff in there because the build is not very transparent, right?
Yes.
You just download this asset and you have, like, if you go look at the Git repo, you have no idea if that really matches what you downloaded. Um, so in a way, if we want to do like signing of packages so all this like build provenance means really you have is to try to address that problem, right? Is to say, okay, we have this build system like the CI on GitHub Actions. It runs this workflow and it outputs that file, and then GitHub Actions will sign it, and you get this build attestation, and this you can sign and push it into Sigstore, and then like verify the kind of, you sign the archive, you sign the attestation, and you have this chain of things, and then Sigstore is kind of just a public record then of signatures, so you can go look
Yeah.
into that, and it's like immutable, and so you have some mechanisms as well to verify that externally. So that's kind of like the overview here. But so if we want to do that, then we need to allow people to build and then push the zip to us. And so we end up in a way in a situation which is less secure, I would argue, because you have then this build process in the middle, right? So that's the one thing which I'm not a fan of, but we have to see. I think one first step we could take is that we do the build. So we just download the zip archive from, just run a Git archive ourselves, basically, right? Which is what GitHub is doing, or we even download it from GitHub, and we just archive that, sign that, etc., and not let the project do any kind of weird build steps in the middle.
Yes. And it's amusing you say that, because that's what I assumed you were meant by that line, because I talked to someone from the F-Droid project a couple episodes ago, and like this is part of their thing, right? It's very like Linux distro-like, where they do the builds in their environment, not for security necessarily, but more for just like stability and sanity of these apps they're publishing. And it is amusing because I feel like the Linux distros did this, and then all of the package registries were like, whatever, nerds, we don't need to do that. And I think they're all now being like, maybe that was a good idea.
Well, yeah, I think it's difficult. Like based on the languages, it's not always feasible, or
Yeah.
I would say in PHP this is fine because you really don't need this build step, because the build happens at runtime, like on the fly. The language, the interpreter will just take the file, compile it, and run it on the go. So you don't have really a binary that you need to output, or like like in JavaScript, where you need to build things in various ways that it's consumable by npm and by just the various browsers and various targets you have there. So I think we're lucky in that way that we can actually afford to just say, yeah, we don't need a build step. I think for some people a build step would still be beneficial. Like there are some like some dev tools mostly that kind of ship, much like Composer does actually, that ship these far files, which are like PHP archives that essentially is just a zip file with a bunch of PHP files like glued together.
Yeah.
But so you have like all the dependencies in it, etc. And so that's as close as you get to a binary in a PHP sense. But so I think we might allow it at some point, but I would say it's good if we come from the other direction and say, okay, by the default is you don't have that. And if you need weird stuff, like if you need a build step, then we probably want to flag that on the package page, like to say, hey, this package is altering stuff in a way. And then you need to be a little bit more cautious.
That's fair. Okay. Time to land this plane, my friend. So, like, tell me what the future of all this looks like. Because you said you've been doing nothing but security for 2 weeks, which is obviously not going to sustain your business for very long. So I'm curious, like, what you envision, how you weave some of this in over time, what we can kind of expect. Just the floor is yours.
So I wish I had like a clear roadmap, but
that's fine.
Somehow, so what's been happening, I think, really of the last few months is that um, you've had more and more attacks. I mean, you've seen this, I'm sure,
Oh
on all
yeah.
the ecosystems. Like it's been finally biting us as well a little bit, but just overall, it's like there's almost this daily new strain of Shai Hulud or whatever hitting NPM, and like it's just it's completely out there. In parallel to that, you have thanks to these new super advanced LLMs doing security scanning, you have more and more just audits happening and security reports for like vulnerabilities of various amounts of severities. Most of them are not so bad, so okay, but still you get new reports all the time, and so and I really feel like there's this acceleration thing going on the last few months where it's not on a super sustainable track
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
just like you everything you try to do is you just get sidetracked like on a daily basis. I feel like there's always something coming in and going like, well, no, not today, you're not doing that. So
I know, right?
um so I feel like talking about the future, I don't even want to go there because I
That's
have
fine.
no
Okay.
idea what we
So
manage when.
I'm going to do it
But
for you then. So
yes.
here's what I'm
Okay.
seeing, right? Is you mentioned the madness, right? Where you think you're going to
Hmm.
do something every day and you wake up and it's like, oh, everything is on fire over here. So I'm going to go fix that thing. And there is a lot of short term firefighting happening across this, just across the
Hmm.
industry. I won't even say security industry because this is affecting
Yeah.
everyone at this point, right? But the things you have, and the reason I was so excited about your blog post is these are systemic fixes, right?
Hmm.
These are things that will deal with entire classes of problems. These aren't like, oh, we're going to fix this one package. We're going to, you know what I mean? And now multiply that times a billion or whatever. There's
Yeah.
like an
Yeah.
ungodly number of open source things out there versus saying, we're going to turn on MFA. We're
Yeah.
going to make the tags immutable or releases. I'm sorry, in your case, immutable. You're talking about, just enforcing the malware detection where it's just you can't
Hmm.
install it. No question. You know what I mean? Like those are the kind of steps I think every package registry needs to like put some serious thought into. And you're going to break things for some people, but the
Yeah.
reality is like the danger of not fixing these things vastly outweighs the pain and
Hmm.
suffering a small number, hopefully small number of users will suffer.
Yeah. 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 No, I think so. Okay. I- Next step for us, I know like the close future, let's say, is working on organization ownership of packages.
Yes.
Because until now we had just like maintainers, as a user, you create your package and then you can add another user to it. But then you end up in a very messy situation there where um, just, bigger projects that have like 100, 200 packages, it's very messy for them to manage this like one by one. Then they tend to share credentials. They can't easily
Yep.
do MFA, and then so yeah, you have this chain of problems, and so it's really like for us, I think having organization ownership will unlock a lot of stuff. Um, and so yeah, I think once we have that, we can start enforcing MFA for the popular packages at least. So it's just lots of dependencies on that thing, and
Yes.
so I'm hoping that ships in the next few weeks slash months. 'Cause it's quite a chunk of work with all the permission management, etc.
Oh, I
But
can imagine.
and migration as well. Like we need to somehow find good ways to
Yeah.
migrate the existing into that.
Yeah. Good luck with
Um,
that one, man.
yeah, yeah. But I think this should allow us to do really a lot of things, and then the whole like hosting archives ourselves will also unlock a bunch of stuff, but that has as discussed. Like if you want to do this
Yeah.
securely, I think it has a lot of dependencies as well.
Right.
So
Right. That's a whole different problem. Wow.
I think one thing we realized would help a lot is something which I think NPM published last week as well. I think stage releases. I don't know
Yes.
if you've seen that.
Yep. Yep.
So that's really just, in short, the concept of saying, okay, you release something, but then you need to go either via API or via the website. You have to go and use a second factor authentication to push out the release to the world. So you have a staged release step before you actually um, release it in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
wild. And I think this would help really, like to really put a huge break on, at least for popular packages, to say, hey, if you have just thousands and thousands of people installing your stuff every day, then you need to go through this extra step of like going on the website and clicking a thing that says, hey,
Yep.
yes, true, I'm here, I'm a human, I wasn't hacked, and I still have my hardware key. and
Right.
and I think that just really puts a huge improvement into the whole system, like security wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially it prevents all these automatic spread of worm-like behaviors where, yeah, sure, you have access to this account, so you can start pushing releases there, and then you get access to the other account, and then with this
Yep.
chain of hacked GitHub accounts, which is really bad.
I know. Right. All right. All right, Jordy. This is
Yep.
fun, man. I've learned a ton. I am excited to see the work your crew does over the next probably, well, infinite years.
Yeah.
This will never
Yes.
end. But this is awesome. I mean, thank you for the time. Thank you for the work.
Oh,
I
thank
know
you.
how much effort this is, and you're doing amazing work here. And the fact that you've put all this together just gives me the hope I need, and I feel like isn't around for many of us on a daily basis. It feels pretty dire. So, yeah, I mean, thank you so much for everything. I appreciate it.
Sure. Hey, most welcome. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yep. Until next time.
Yeah.